Hello and welcome to Third Eye Thinkers. I'm your host, Michelle Welch.
Hi, I'm your host, Megan Benanti.
I almost said I'm your host, Megan Welch.
Got us all tongue-tied.
We're getting synchronized here, I think.
That's a perfect Mercury retrograde
Yeah,
reference there.
Totally.
Yeah,
yes, it
absolutely.
is. So it's good to be here today.
Yeah.
And so today we are going to talk about the top misconceptions.
Yeah, top 10 misconceptions.
Top 10 if we get to 10. I don't know. We're going to try. The top 10 misconceptions about psychics.
Yep.
I guess there's probably a lot of them. What would you say that are the things that, what would be the first thing you think of that people say to you that they misunderstand about
Well,
you?
first of all, that, what I do is something bad, that my gift comes from something evil or dark. And that's just not the case, Yeah. What about you? What comes to mind for you?
Well, for sure, because of some of my background and a lot of the friends I have and their belief system, which I love the friends of mine that I have, but they definitely have some very strong belief systems around that. So they definitely think, especially when I use certain tools like tarot cards, they definitely think that it's evil. Even when we're going to talk about our tools that we brought today, we always bring for you guys a crystal of our show and an herb. And for the crystals even, sometimes when I use those for my divination or for my psychic readings, they will think that that's evil also, even though they're mentioned so many times in the Bible, you guys, it's not even funny. I mean, crystals are mentioned a lot. In the Bible. They're in Aaron's breastplate in the Old Testament. They're in Revelations for the New Jerusalem, all in Revelations. So crystals are mentioned so much. Yeah, they represent the 12 tribes of Israel on Aaron's breastplate in the book of Exodus. In the Old Testament. So it's very interesting that's a whole nother subject though. But I brought today for just segueing into whether or not what we do as psychics are evil or not, I brought the very evil, beautiful crystal azurite that comes from God's beautiful earth. And no, I'm kidding. I think they only say that if they think someone's worshiping the crystal, which obviously I don't worship the crystal, but I certainly think they're beautiful. And I also think they have a lot of healing powers and a lot of healing properties. So the healing properties of azurite they very much connect you to your intuition. But at the same time, the reason I chose azurite for today about misconceptions is they very much connect you to the truth. So they're very good with your third eye. And I believe your third eye, even though it connects very well with your throat chakra, because the stone does also too, because it helps you see very clearly. See things intuitively, and you see the truth, and you have insight and discernment, and see very clearly into things. So let's say you had a question about, whether or not you could really trust something that a psychic or an intuitive was telling you, or something, or trust your own intuition. The azurite would be very good for that. Now, this azurite is a beautiful blue. For those of you watching, there's one on the screen, and then here's a beautiful piece from our store. This is a specimen piece, and then I have some tumbled pieces that are pretty, but the specimen pieces are beautiful. This is my husband's favorite stone, is azurite. It grows with malachite. So the green, if you are watching, is malachite. If you can't see it, the blue is, what color blue would you describe that as, Megan?
I would say it's between a royal and a navy blue. It's really, really vibrant and rich. And I even like it in the tumbled form because it kind of looks like, to me, like paint on a black wall. And, it's really smooth, but you still see these really bright blue colors in it, and it's just fabulous. And I will say the tumbled version, the blue looks very different than the blue in the large stone with the malachite in it.
Maybe you should paint the azurite and malachite. Maybe you should be inspired. Megan's, you're a painter. Maybe you should be inspired by that.
It's great colors.
Crystal paintings, I don't always love the crystal paintings, so there needs to be I'd love to find a good crystal painter, Megan. So there you go.
I don't even know what that is.
Well,
You'd have to educate me on that.
that you use the azurite to help you with your intuition to channel that.
Okay.
There we go. Yes,
Okay.
I think. Look how beautiful the stone is.
Oh yeah, the colors are.
It's almost
phenomenal.
like it has glitter in it.
Yes, it's extremely sparkly.
Yes,
and
extremely.
and you lose that sparkle in the tumbled, so that's why the raw form is really cool. But yeah, anybody who likes a little sparkle or bling, this is definitely a great stone for you. It's a little more on the expensive side, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is a little more on the expensive side. We do have small pieces also of this. This is a very, very nice specimen that we have in our store. This one, but we have smaller ones. But yeah, they're always run a little bit more expensive. But the reason, again, why I chose this for misconceptions about psychics is because the ability to connect with this stone to open your own intuition, your own discernment, to see through, to get to the truth of the matter.
Yeah. No, I think
So,
that's perfect.
Yeah. What herb did you bring?
So I actually brought a plant, and today we are dealing
I
with a
always
house
say herb,
plant.
and I apologize. Because
Oh no, that's
yeah.
okay. Yeah, no, I mean,
I guess
it's
there is a
big
difference,
world.
isn't there? Herb, trees, plants.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
they do have some varieties in there.
Yes.
This is actually so Transevera trifasciata, which is known as mother-in-law's tongue, and
How hilarious.
yeah, no, and it's also called snake plant.
That's even funnier.
Oh, you think so?
Well, I don't know. I want to
Oh, well,
explain
yeah.
that one.
And barbershop plant. And I thought, to me, I grew up always calling it mother-in-law's tongue, and it's been around for like ages as an indoor house plant. But I remember it, back in the 70s because it's very tolerant of anything. I mean, I'm pretty sure our plant got watered with beer part of the time, growing up. So, but you'll see these. You can buy them, anywhere, Home Depot or a plant nursery. They're pretty common. So it's super hardy, and it's been popular for about a century now. It's what we call a monocot, which is when you have those leaves that come directly out of the ground versus dicots, which are basically every other plant. But being a plant nerd, that's sort of important to me. So one of the reasons I picked it, though, was because of the misconception of the name mother-in-law plant. It's like, or mother-in-law's tongue. So we automatically, what's the assumption that you're not going to like your mother-in-law? Like, what is that about? So I'm a mother-in-law, and I kind of think I'm cool sometimes.
I think you're pretty cool.
So I thought, well, that's a terrible name. And whoever came up with that obviously had a bad attitude about his mother-in-law or her mother-in-law.
Right.
And so that's kind of why I picked this one. But it's good.
Clever.
It removes airborne pollutants, so it's nice to have in your home. And it also removes like pollutants like from manufactured products, so your cleaning supplies and things like that, and things that would like cause respiratory problems or headaches and things like that. So
Wow.
you don't really think about houseplants other than the aesthetic appeal, but they actually have a lot of function in there. So that's one of the reasons I thought that would be kind of cool. Now, holistically, this can be boiled or crushed and applied to the skin if you have like a skin irritation, kind of like an aloe vera plant, which I thought was interesting. But basically, don't ever consume it. So you don't want your animals eating it because it can cause basically stomach problems. But it's a pretty thick leaf, sort of like aloe vera. You can tell there's a lot of juice or liquid inside, and that's why you don't have to water it so often. But yeah, I was like, well, that's a plant that maybe people believe, oh, well, I don't want that because it's a mother-in-law's tongue.
Oh, that's very clever. So. Yeah. So what was the other name? Snake something?
Oh, snake plant.
Yeah, same thing. I
So
mean, we have a
the leaves
misconception sometimes about snakes too.
Oh,
right?
yeah, and I love
Yeah.
snakes, but that's being a gardener.
But the same thing.
Yeah.
Another misconception sometimes.
Well, and the idea, I think, too, of a tongue or a snake is it's this leaf that comes right out of the ground, just like the snake's tongue sticks right out, or, someone else's tongue.
Yeah. Where do you keep this? I'm asking you guys because I'm the one who kills all the plants. I'm always told I have this fairy angel energy, which I don't feel like it today at all, but it's definitely not garden fairy or,
Oh, okay.
yeah, because I have not a green thumb. It must be like a black thumb. I mean, I Poor plant. So it's not the closet plant, is it? Like the closet lily? My grandmother used to say closet.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Well,
Or
it's where the little white plant flower comes up out of it, and you can't kill that either. It's green. She called it a closet plant, but it's not that. But where do you keep this?
maybe an amaryllis bulb if
you-
she was forcing
probably-
it or something.
Where do you keep these though?
So
Light,
medium,
dark?
medium to low light.
Okay.
But that means you don't. Plants need light to photosynthesize. I mean, that is their form of eating, and so it needs some kind of light. But a lot of people make the mistake with house plants of putting them in direct sunlight, especially when it comes through that window. It's kind of intensified, and generally, you're not going to do that.
Okay.
Plants they'll come with tags that tell you their watering needs, and so this one, indirect. Kind of low filtered light is usually going to be okay, but not near a window, just catching some light from that window.
Right.
Yeah.
So for today, I pulled some things off Google because I thought, and they all kind of came out about the same, kind of what are the top 10 things that people have misconceptions about us about. But then I thought, let's just kind of brainstorm. And I know you kind of brainstormed some things. I thought that too, that we're evil or that what we do is evil. Another thing that came up, it seems like across the board, is that wherever we go, we're reading people's minds.
Yeah.
Do you get that? Oh, stop. Don't read my mind. Just everywhere you go that you're reading someone's minds. And first of all, I can just tell you, I do this all day, and so does Megan. I mean, we work pretty hard. We're pretty busy at what we do. So we don't want to go to the grocery store and read your mind. Even if we could do that all day long, we don't. We want to shop. We want to pick our nice vegetables and enjoy our time.
Yeah.
So we don't do that even if that's something. Yes, sometimes I may start to pick up on something, and that's not I don't get up in anyone else's business without permission. That is one of my moral, ethical codes as a reader, as a psychic. How do you feel about that?
Well, I would agree with that 100%. And so, if somebody wants like a reading on their boyfriend or something, and it's like, I don't know that that's really a good idea.
Only maybe to the extent it directly affects you, and you have to show how it did. Before
Well, to me, it's about the question and how you phrase it. But when if I'm out and about, I am focused on my life. And I don't mean to sound rude, but it's kind of egocentric of people to think that I'm just going to be checking in on them or anybody else. Right. It's like, I don't know you. Are you that important in my life? I have a friend who's a psychologist, and she picks up on my energy. If I'm having a rough day, I get a lot of texts from her, and I'm like, oh. I'm fine, but, she's not someone who thinks of herself as being psychic. She's just, in touch with me, and that's all. So, we are not going around and reading people,
getting in your brain and that is a misconception, I would say.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Now, do some people have the ability to perhaps be telepathic with other people? Yes, they do practice that ability, so I don't want to diminish that ability. They've even tested that. But do we typically go around and just get in, everywhere we go, we're reading everybody's minds and reading your thoughts? No, we do not do that, nor do we want to, nor do we ethically want to do that, I would say.
Right.
So that is a misconception. What else would you think would be a common misconception?
So that we're like all old, kind of fat, unattractive people in broom skirts, that we're gypsies. It's like there's not an age on being a psychic. I mean, life experience does help, but I have worked with, people in their early 20s that were just really gifted. And even, I've worked with a medium who was 11 years old. And helped her and her family to kind of work with that situation that she's dealing with. So, you can be young and cool and hip and still be psychic. So.
Right. What else? Let's see. Let's see. I'm just going to go to this first page, and we're about halfway through. And we've only done about 3 or 4 of them, about halfway through our time. Oh, what we were going to say, predicting lottery numbers, since we just had the big lottery. So
yeah.
that we can always, well, let's combine these. That we're always correct, that we're
Okay.
always absolutely correct on specifics. Matt, our producer, mentioned this one. Matt, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, I hear that even when I've told people, hey, we have a couple of psychics that do a show here. They're always asking, oh, are they giving you specific predictions? And I'm like, that's not really how it works. But I think that's what people think. You're going to tell them, here's what's going to happen to you when you walk out of the door. And that's not really what you do.
Yeah, it's kind of, are you a fortune teller? And we've talked about that. It's a good point, Matt. We've talked about, are we a fortune teller? What kind of reader are we? Fortune teller versus are we someone who wants to help someone heal and go through their process? You know, we all have free will and things change. So what course are we on? And even when we look at the cards, it may be that there may be a course that we're on, and do we want to course correct, and do we want to change something on this course?
Right.
And so as far as the lottery numbers, you said you might, do you want to share what happened?
Oh, I just had someone yesterday, and he was like, pick 6 numbers for me, just random between 1 and whatever the 70. And he's like, okay, and give me one more. And then he's like, okay, thanks. And I was like, well, what was that? And he's like, well, I kind of do that with everyone. And so it's like he gets lottery numbers from people that I guess that he meets with
Just
in
anyone.
general. Yeah, but it was kind of funny. Like I've never had anybody ask me. And I always call the lottery numbers the low dangling carrot because,
I love that.
you know, particularly people who, you know, if they're uncomfortable, they're trying to break the ice, I think. And they're like, oh, do you have the winning lottery numbers? And it's like, well, would I really be, working if I did?
Exactly.
But
I think, what was it, 5 million, Matt? What was do you remember?
Oh, gosh, I don't remember.
5 million.
Yeah, in the
It was a
hundreds,
lot of
I
money.
want to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you guys, I know when I was working at the DA's office in Dallas, a bunch of defense attorneys went in together, and they won the lottery. Here in Dallas,
Wow.
they did. This was, I'm not going to
Really?
say how long ago because it reveals my age, but they did. They were actually in the public defender's office, and I was working at the DA's office here in Dallas County, and they went in on a ticket and they won. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to know what they did with that money and you know, now if they're still not working.
Yeah,
Wow.
in my old job, we used to go in on a lottery. Whenever it would get sizable enough, which I always thought was funny, as if $5 million isn't enough. You got to play when it's $100 million, right? That's
Yeah.
that's the
Right,
only time
yeah.
it matters. But yeah, we would go in on lottery. I don't think we ever did anything but break even, which I guess is not bad. But
Yeah.
no, that's
I
good.
don't know if we
actually.
really ever won anything sizable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a big misconception. And so that we'll have time for readings, I thought maybe, do you have another one real quickly? And
Oh,
thought-
I was just going to say, you know, falling into that exacting thing, like names. Some people are gifted with picking out names and letters. That's not my thing personally. And I'm sure that if I wanted to focus on that, I could probably develop that further, but it's not, it hasn't been that important to me to really go in that direction. And
Right.
so, you know, for everyone, that's a little bit different. And so don't necessarily assume that you're going to get an exact name or an exact date of when things are going to happen. So,
Right. And time is really funny. I mean, depending on what you believe about quantum physics and string theory and, you know, parallel universes and all those things that could be a great show sometime. You know, time is really elusive. It's not.
Right.
It's not like an out for a psychic to say to you, "Time's very difficult," because time is.
Right.
It's a very elusive thing, and it's changing, and there's actually coming out a lot of information on all that, scientific information on that is starting to back that up. It's really complicated, but I can just tell you it's very difficult to get a lot of specific information, although I do believe with all psychic abilities or psychic phenomenon that you can practice. You can practice and develop your skills, like you just said. I believe that some people start off and they're just really good at it. They may just be a natural singer, let's say. And some
Right.
people have to really work at developing their vocal cords and learning to sing from their diaphragm and all those kinds of things. It's the same as with being a psychic. One thing is with the cards. There are some people who another misconception is they believe that, and this is on the list that I got off of one of the
Yeah,
the
online.
sites on Google, and it was repeated on a lot of them, was that the people who read cards are not necessarily as good as those who just go, "Oh, I'm getting this message," and that's not true at all. It's the tools are just, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
They may enhance you. You may not need them. You may want to use them because they're fun. You may want to use them because they're pretty. You may not need to use them. A lot of times we know how to read the cards, but then I can see that we're getting something intuitive from the cards also.
Right.
And along those lines, I had a client one time that all he would ever say to me, he thought the magic was in the cards. I think I've said this before on here. I had said something. He was from Russia.
Okay.
And so I'm not really giving too much away. He's from Russia, and he'll call. And I told him something one time that was very, very specific about his health. No way I could have known it. No way that it gave it away. It was something very serious, and it helped him greatly.
Right.
Okay. And still, after all that, he would go, pull a card, and I can't scream it like he would scream it because it'll blow the mic, but he would scream at me. So the joke became, with my husband, my husband now will go, pull a card, and he'll scream at it because it's as though the magic is in the card. So that's also a misconception. It kind of goes both ways.
Right.
That you're not as gifted if you use the cards, or you're more gifted if you use the cards.
Yeah, and that comes up a lot. But I would never, basically you don't want to diminish someone's work because of if they use a tool or not.
Absolutely not.
Everybody learns to develop their psychic gift in a different way and what they're most comfortable with.
And the other, so we'll get the cards out, or whatever we're going to use, the charms. And that's why I called that, by the way, a misconception about the tools, because it is a misconception. That's why we don't want to diminish anyone's gift.
Right.
That's why I was putting that. I want to clarify. I was not diminishing the gift. I was putting,
no.
Yeah, that in. But I want to make sure I'm clear on that.
You were.
Also, that we all know our own future. Because there's a little, and we're going to run out of time, but there's a little game that people will play with you. I'll be like, do you think that we should, or do we have enough time to do this? And they'll go, well, you should know, you're a psychic. And they think it's really funny, like that's the first time you've ever had that joke told to you before.
That's
why do you ever get stuck in traffic, right? You should know, right?
You should know. Michelle, why were you late? You should have known there was going to be a wreck on the way here.
Again, that's the low dangling carrot, It's like, oh.
And it's you guys, we've heard that joke a million times.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And other things that kind of come up as misconceptions, and I know we might miss our time on reading today for this episode, but there was, I think it is important that we go over some of these things. So that, like, you can't have more than one person in a room. And some psychics believe that you can only have one person in a room, or that energy from the other person will kind of get in the way. That is not true for me.
Yeah,
and in fact, I don't know anybody that it is true for, but I've had people that were separated that have come in for readings that their experience was that they were separated into two different rooms, and it was kind of weird. So
what you mean is, for a reading, that to get a reading, that it's okay for you to come in together, that we can still read for you if you come in as together.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say about that is, I'll say to those two people, because I had 3 women come in one time, and they were all best friends. Well, when you have 3 women that are best friends, what happens sometimes? There's a little drama at times when there are 3 women. At times, Yeah. And they came in together. I was wanting you to agree with me with the story.
Oh, yeah, no,
there's sometimes a little drama when there are 3 women. So they all came in for a reading, and all I said to them was, I can read for all of you. I read for galleries. I read for 40, 50 people at a time. So I can read for you, but are you okay with what I get and that I say it? And they were like, oh, yeah, we're okay. We're okay. And so I started getting something, and I wasn't sure. I wasn't being told exactly what I was getting.
Uh-huh.
Oh, boy. This was when I was so fairly young. And that's when experience comes in. I was getting information about the drama that was going on between the 3. And, of course, they needed to come for the healing. But that's one reason you might want to be careful when you do come, because something may come out that, you come together. Something may come out that you better be sure you want to come out.
Right. Well, and I haven't had that experience. I have had at parties,
actually,
though, where couples will walk up and they end up with a little bit of intensive therapy that they didn't expect, which is kind of funny.
It does happen.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit.
What other ones do you have? I'm sorry.
Oh, well, the other one that I thought was the big one is that psychics are scammers or con artists. And
Well, yeah, we need to hit that one for sure.
And unfortunately, there are going to be some of those people out there. Yeah, to me, that was like my big number one,
Yeah.
but I just, we're not all that way. And I think a lot of people are very genuine with what they do. And it from our standpoint, you got to do your homework as well. Do your research, know who you're not going to go, if you were going to go to a therapist, if you were going to go to a situation where your life is revealed in front of you, wouldn't you want to know something about that person first? And so that's where this comes into play. So do your homework, look at their reviews, but look at their website. Get a sense of that person. There'll be a biography. There'll be links to articles. There'll be, there might be podcasts. Or videos that you can watch, but there's going to be a lot of general information about that psychic, and that's going to help you to make the decision of who's the right person for you to go to. Who do you feel you can trust? To me, just looking at someone's reviews are great, but it's like a pair of jeans. Not every pair is going to fit awesome, and so you want to be able to get a good fit. And I generally find that if people have really done their research on me, it's going to work out pretty darn well.
Mm-hmm.
It's every now and then I'll get someone who doesn't fit, but maybe they were a referral, or maybe they just read my reviews, but they didn't look at my website and really get to know anything about me. And then I'm speaking a different language,
Right.
that they're not connecting with. And that's the important part, is that we can communicate the same language to one another.
Right.
So.
I totally agree with that. And it's just like anything. There are, in every profession, there's going to be, I would think most every profession, there's somebody that would be not of the moral code or ethics, that there might be a con artist, there might be a scammer. I mean, I have a law degree, and I can tell you there's some lawyers that are not so ethical. And then there's some great, very upstanding, ethical lawyers.
Right.
And even though there's a code of ethics that you have and you're licensed as an attorney, there's a lot that it has to go to. And I want to say this because I think it's important. And, we don't have a specific code of ethics, but I know that a lot of us hold each other to a code of ethics.
Yes.
We know each other. We align. We tend to come together, those of us who have that code of ethics and the moral compass, I think, where we just kind of draw draw together. And do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Even though we don't have something that we have to go by, I have one, and when in my crystal healing classes, I hand one out that everyone who passes that class, they have to sign, and it's many of those things are things that I would say would be the exact same things for a reader or for a psychic, a code of ethics that they would have to follow. So even though, a lot of things are licensed in the state of Texas, I feel like many in our business as psychics in this town especially, they very much follow a very strong code of ethics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Many people.
And I know some states, they actually have laws that
do.
regulate. But another thing that that kind of came up in my head there was, curses and spells. And not every psychic does that, nor do they remove them. They don't put them on. They don't cast spells. There are people that do that, but it's you've got to be looking for that if that's what you want.
I'll say one more. I'll tag on that, tag team on that point. For us specifically, if somebody needs their house cleared, this is nothing against someone who charges a lot of money to do this. I'm not speaking about what anyone else does. I'll say what I do. For us, if someone says, I really have a negative vibe, I don't know how to clear my house, I don't know how to do it, I don't want to do it, could you come in and do it? We charge for the sage and whatever products we might use, which are very minimal, and just our time, which is not much at all. to go. There's some people who may charge a whole lot of money. That's just not our belief system. We just don't. We do charge for our time because we're taking away from our we've got to make a living, and we're taking away from the time from our family, but we don't charge thousands and thousands of dollars to do that. It's just, it's just like I say in law, it's when something just doesn't smell right, it's just the smell test. When it just doesn't smell right, you just know it's not right. So you just got to use your judgment on that. If something doesn't smell right, it's for you to determine,
Right.
and what smells right to you. We'll have people call, and I won't ever pass a judgment on someone else or say, oh my goodness, they shouldn't have done that. I'll just say, well, this is what our policy is.
Right.
On that. This is what our policy is if you think you've had a curse put on you. Our policy is, maybe that's your culture. Maybe that's what you think. I don't know. I haven't met you. Let's, maybe do a reading to see. But I'm not going to jump right to that conclusion. And I'm not going to charge somebody a whole bunch of money to get that pulled off of them. But I'm also not going to judge someone else because I don't know what that other reader experienced or how they came to that conclusion.
Right. Well, and that's a good point. I generally just avoid all of that.
Well, it's a
not
little
my
more
jam.
it's a little more difficult for us in a store. We do too. We avoid we've talked about this. We talked about where we were ever going to go on this subject, and here we are at the end of the show on about curses. And we said we didn't want to offend anybody who did do that. Do you remember
Right.
that? But before we ever started. So I'm just trying to be careful. We don't do that. We don't operate in that area with our store. But we do with clearing of houses. We will just like if you're moving to a new house and you want to just clear out that energy, and all we do is really charge for the supplies and our little bit of time that we would charge is very nominal, actually.
Yeah.
And Roger goes and does that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's actually a really nice service to have for somebody who doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, no,
So-
I love that you do that. I didn't realize you guys did.
But it's not something where we charge a whole lot of money where other people do. And
Right.
and I will go there. I'll say I don't really appreciate it when people do and they're gouging people. Okay, it's that sniff test again. I kind of know when they are,
Yeah,
and I don't like it.
I gotcha.
So,
I hear you.
So there are a lot of misconceptions. I think I agree with Megan. Just to see how you feel about the person you're talking to. When you go to make an appointment, you can look at the website. You're not going to get to talk to them usually a lot of times when you do make an appointment. You're going to make it
That's true.
online. So you're just going to have to kind of do all your homework, like you said. But there are a lot of reviews.
Right.
And I can just tell you, just call me or Megan.
Yeah,
And
well-
I'll recommend Megan, and I think Megan would recommend
I would
me.
recommend Michelle.
So,
But you said call now, and that's another thing. I saw just researching the other day. Somebody had a bad review because they couldn't return a phone call to someone, and so the person gave them 1 star. And I thought, oh, and I know how busy this psychic is, and it's very hard for us to get to phone calls if we're in session all day long.
oh yeah, I misspoke.
And
Yeah.
honestly, people will call and they'll want to talk for 30 minutes. I just don't have the time. I am happy, if someone calls and leaves me a message, I will text them back. But
Well,
I
that's
generally
making an
don't.
appointment. I meant make an appointment.
Oh, okay.
That's what I
Yeah.
meant. Yes, correct.
So, but I just did want to say that it's not that we don't care if we can't return a phone call, but it's just a matter of time. So,
It's the same thing as think about have you signaled us? Is our time over? I'm sorry, Matt.
That's fine.
Okay.
We have time to wrap up.
I'll just wrap up with this. There are a lot of misconceptions. We could go on and on. The main thing we want to say is that most, it's just like any other business. You just have to do your homework, like Megan said. And there are going to be people who are really good at their jobs and really love their jobs or are in this business for all the right reasons because they want to help people and they're good at what they do. And there are going to be people in this business who maybe you want to steer clear of. And you just want to just be careful, just like any other business. But I think that's a good way to end it.
yeah,
don't you?
perfect.
And until next time, do keep third eye thinking, and that'll help you choose your right psychic.
Y'all take care.
You're listening to RMCN, the digital destination for premium talk radio.